What's up, guys? Gun here. Happy Sunday, August 2nd, 2020 basketball. A couple of days into this return of the season, the bubble season. As weird as this whole year has been, at least basketball and baseball over the last couple days and the last week have kind of brought back some sense of normalcy, and there have been some really cool, fun games in both sports to watch lately. Basketball has had some classics as well, and then a couple blowouts lately. So today we have another slate of basketball games that's going to be a little bit staggered out throughout the day. First game is going to tip off at 1 p.m. My time, so I believe that's 2 p.m. Eastern. And we have another 6 games of fun, interesting matchups. I think today's matchups overall will probably play a little bit faster in pace, maybe a little bit higher in scoring, and a little bit more studs on the slate. We've got Harden, Luka, Westbrook, Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo is on the slate, Porzingis. So there's several high floor, high ceiling guys to go up there and get. And we're dealing with a lot of important games. Seeding counts, and every win counts. So I'm going to be excited to watch a lot of these games today, but also going to be excited to break it down and hopefully build some lineups. Yesterday, a super profitable day for me on both sites, on FanDuel and DraftKings. TJ Warren was severely underpriced, yes, and then under-owned on both sites. And he led me to top 10 finishes in all my single entries on FanDuel, and then did pretty good on DraftKings as well. Now, on DraftKings, I did have a little bit more exposure to guys like Miles Turner, who had a seriously bad foul day, and we talked about how his propensity to chase blocks could lead to fouls, and that he could just be a foul-prone player anyway up against a guy like Joel Embiid. Kind of played out. Embiid continued his dominance against the Pacers, against Miles Turner. He was a massive play, and I was overweight on Embiid, and I seesawed Embiid exposure in my own lineups over Nikola Jokic. And at halftime of the Nuggets game, I thought I was in trouble. Jokic had about 30 at half. I went and took me a midday nap getting ready for baseball. I woke up, Jokic only had 39. The Nuggets just kind of all fizzled out. Michael Porter Jr. was trendy. He wasn't really worth having. Monte Morris. So that game was really, really, really the tale of two halves. And, I used to be leery of Jokic on the road, and maybe that's something I keep in mind going forward. But a couple things just didn't happen the way a lot of the field thought they would happen. But hey, super profitable day. I'll take it. If you're stumbling across this video on YouTube, first of all, welcome to the channel. I appreciate you giving me the time of day. 2 things. One, if you don't mind, hit that thumbs up. And if you like what you hear as you listen for a little bit, subscribe to the channel, hit that notifications bell, trying to bring the channel back into that YouTube algorithm. I have a lot of stuff planned in the coming weeks. We might even do a face reveal, quote unquote. I know most of you guys have seen me, but a lot of people always ask why I don't do streams with face cam, and it just hasn't been something I cared about. But as I'm doing more research on channel growth, it looks like that's just going to be the wave. So maybe tomorrow we'll be getting that set up, and I have a couple ideas on some content production and bringing it to you guys. So also, if you are new to the community, which you see on the screen is RunDFS.com. That's the place where we don't just play DFS, we run DFS. It's the premium side of things. If you guys want to go above and beyond supporting the channel and getting a little something in return, you can get a premium subscription through the RunDFS.com VIP Passes paywall. Just sign up, register an account, click VIP Passes, and then you'll have options like Week Pass, 2-week pass, month pass, and a year-end pass. You can lock in until January 1st, $300. That's not a single sport. That's every sport we do. I spearhead NBA, MLB, and NFL in a month, and that'll be also 24/7 access to our premium Discord. We have 60 to 70 grinders in there talking all sports last night. They were grinding MMA. Sounded like it was a really wacky MMA night. A couple of fights got canceled. One of them got canceled in the middle of the slate because a fighter fainted, is the story I got. That's crazy. And they're grinding golf, all that good stuff. So if you guys are looking to join a fun community, this is the place to be. I stress it a lot. For NBA, with these all-day slates, there's going to be times where people get scratched, where people are rested. Certain people get surprise starts and stuff like that. A community like this Discord that will tag everybody for the important stuff, while you can be on the go and have that push notification on your phone, is so lucrative, in my opinion. Also, in this Discord, every day before lock, we have a 2-hour pre-lock voice chat, where we're just kind of spitballing ideas, shooting the breeze, hanging out, having some fun, making some lineups. And if you guys want to add that to your daily process, I think that's a great, it's probably some of my favorite parts of the day is voice chatting it up while we're making our lineups. And then, of course, in addition to Discord access, you'll get access to the RunDFS.com VIP spreadsheets. We have them for baseball, football, and then throughout the duration of this video, we'll be using the NBA spreadsheet. So, get you some of that, add it to your daily research process. I am gonna get cranked up. I am doing kind of a pop-up middle of the night stream. I did not expect it, and by middle of the night, I mean it's 5:46 a.m. where I am. I didn't actually even intend on doing videos today, but every now and then I wake up and I can't go back to sleep, so I figured why not put out some content, and it's a great way for me to kind of talk through the slate. So shout out to Darian, shout out to Sean. Am I doing a baseball video? Maybe. It's only 6 games. Pitching is so bad, though. Pitching so bad. And what up, Darian? MMA was underdog city? Man, that's tough. Anyway, let's talk about the games on the slate. First game on the docket. It's one of my favorite games on the surface. Should draw a lot of ownership. Projected starting 5 for the Washington Wizards. Shabazz Napier, Isaac Bonga, Troy Brown Jr., Rui Hachimura, and Thomas Bryant taking on Chris Chiozza, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, Lance Thomas, and Jarrett Allen. So the Nets offered 2 of my favorite players last slate in Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen, and they didn't quite come through the way I had intended. But the game kind of got out of hand. So I want to do a couple things. One, I'm going to bring up the popcorn machine, kind of paint the picture, first of all, of minutes and stuff like that. But secondly, this game was essentially a blowout. The final score might look a little bit closer than the game actually played. So the final score for the Nets game was Nets and man, I typed this up on Google and it gave me some crazy old game. The final score was a 10-point game, but that pretty much all happened in the fourth quarter. 36 points by the Nets, 17 by the Magic backup squads in the fourth quarter. Before that, it was a rout. So what we saw was a lot of the Nets starters got yanked early into the fourth quarter. We'll bring up this popcorn machine. We'll kind of zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it. Jarrett Allen only played 2 minutes into the fourth. He got yanked. Karis LeVert, same, only a couple minutes into the fourth. Joe Harris, all the starters got yanked. So their minutes, 27 minutes for Allen, 28 minutes for LeVert. They weren't quite what you might have wanted for them if you rostered them. And then the fact that Magic was defensively there, and it was just a lopsided game, you probably didn't get the results that you wanted. However, I'm here to tell you, the Washington Wizards are not quite the Orlando Magic defensively, and I think this game will be much more fruitful for fantasy. But if we're looking at metrics, usage rates, and whatnot, Karis LeVert had a 34% usage rate in that game against Orlando. That is what you want. So if I can quantify that for 35 minutes, I know the price tag's really close to 8K, but 40% usage rate, and 34 might be on the high end. I still think it's going to be high 20s, 30-ish to begin with. If I can quantify that for 35 minutes against the Washington Wizards, one of the worst teams defensively at everything all season, giving up amongst the most in the league via the three ball, amongst the most in the league via points in the paint. I mean, this is a prime opportunity for Karis LeVert at 8K on a slate that features a lot of studs, and after maybe a somewhat down game perception against Orlando, it's a great spot to pick him up. Do I core him in my cash games today? I don't know because there are some studs on the slate. I mean, the Rockets and Milwaukee game is a 240 total. We know that can go crazy, but I really think this is an elite spot for him, and I certainly think that 50 fantasy points on both sites is well within reason. And then Jared Allen, 6,500 on FanDuel, 5,600 on DraftKings. If you go to that Team DVP tab in the RunDFS.com VIP spreadsheet, Brooklyn is giving up the most fantasy points per game to opposing centers, but the third highest, the Washington Wizards. So, I mean, this should be a fruitful spot for both centers, but I do love this spot for Jared Allen. Allen only had an official 14% usage rate against the Wizards, but I'm willing to gamble that Vucevic and Aaron Gordon and Kim Birch and those type of guys, they're not going to be replicated by the Wizards here. Allen, 27 minutes against the Magic, still just shy of a point per minute, but the shot volume in 27 minutes, I'll take near double-digit shot volume. He's going to dunk, and when he's done dunking, he's going to dunk some more. If we go to that team stats tab in the RunDFS.com VIP spreadsheet, and we go to points in the paint allowed, the Washington Wizards give up the third most points in the paint allowed, so that's dunk city right there. Prime spot for Jared Allen to bounce back and have a big game. 5,600 on DraftKings. Jared Allen has an opportunity to be one of my highest owned players today, and I mean that. That's just a crazy matchup and a crazy price where I certainly think he also has 40, 50 point potential. The Wizards also pretty undersized overall, so I do think there's some block potential here for Jared Allen. He did not get a block against Orlando, but usually he can get you a couple, 2 blocks here against Atlanta, 2 blocks against Orlando. Last game against the Wizards, 18 minutes, 15 fantasy points, and any other games here? Averaging 22 minutes a game, 30 DKP. So that means one of his games against the Wizards must have been like 40 DKP. Jared Allen, DKP by game log versus Wizards. Let's go last 5 games. He had a 45-point game against them on February 1st in 27 minutes with 2 blocks, 15 rebounds. And I definitely think a double-double is here for him. And a reminder, if you guys forgot, there is no DeAndre Jordan. So Jordan was a guy that was eating into his minutes, kind of splitting that half and half. And Jared Allen would see about 28 minutes and so on and so forth. I think Jared Allen has an opportunity to play 32-plus minutes here. DKP by game log without DeAndre Jordan, last 10 games. And you'll see some upside here, 50, 62s, a bunch of 30s. So there's 3 games in the last 10, maybe 4, that I wouldn't take here at his price on DraftKings. And we look at some of those games that I wouldn't like. It was the last game. That was a blowout. It was against the Knicks. The Knicks front court is surprisingly scrappy and big. So I could see how he struggled there. And then 21 on April 23rd, 2019. So that's going into last season against the 76ers front court where he only played 24 minutes, and everything in between I would take. So I'll absolutely be enamored with ownership on Jared Allen today. And Karis LeVert, I'm willing to go back and play him. Timothy Luwawu kind of thrived there in that fourth quarter. On the Wizards side, Ish Smith stands out to me on DraftKings as awfully cheap. He's 5K on FanDuel. I think that's about where he needs to be. But on DraftKings 38, man, that is your glue to go get you some of those studs on the slate. And I think he'll profile as one of my favorite plays. He played 27 minutes against Phoenix, 31 DKP. He has shown an ability to be near a point per minute when his team needs him. And there's a lot of games in his last 10 that I'll take. And a lot of these games come with guys like Bradley Beal on the court, guys like Davis Bertans, and those guys aren't here. And I think he's a great veteran facilitator. I don't think 18 shot attempts is a normal range of outcome for Ish Smith, but I still think he's going to do enough of everything. If we go look at that game, let's go look at the Wizards popcorn machine from last game. Just kind of see what his flow chart kind of looked like against the Phoenix Suns. Ish Smith came in at the end of the first quarter, played a lot of the second quarter, played a lot at the end of the second, and started to help close the game out. So he was there playing some valuable minutes, and I think they call upon him again here. 27 minutes. If I can put a window between 25 and 32. I think at 3,800 in this matchup against Brooklyn. Brooklyn has been a fruitful spot for opposing guards. I'll absolutely be a buyer at 3,800 on Ish Smith, who'll probably be one of my favorite value plays overall. Rui Hachimura still 7,400 on DraftKings. I don't think I get there. The Brooklyn Nets matchup and DVP chart probably is better than it really will be going forward. Brooklyn was number one against opposing power forwards, but what was his name? Let's see, power forwards. Darian, help me out. Let me see. The kid from Baylor. Nets power forwards. Taron Prince. Taron Prince is out. So Taron Prince is one of the better defenders at that position. That's not the case. Lance Thomas, you might remember him from his Knicks glory days, right? He's now their starting power forward. Still not a spot where I love 7,400 on Hachimura because I just think that's way too expensive for his average production. But I also say that I think the matchup against the Brooklyn Nets is much better than perceived if you are following DVP flow charts and stuff like that. 6,100 on FanDuel, I'm willing to get there and take some more chances because I know his minutes are going to be deeper, and I know the opportunity there will be his to lose, right? No Davis Bertans, anything like that. 7,400 just seems a little bit high for a guy that rarely breaks that 40-point threshold. 30 minutes against Phoenix. How many threes are we chucking? We're not chucking a whole lot of threes here to get that extra, but 15 shot attempts against Phoenix. If he gets 15 shot attempts here, I mean, that's a chip in a chair. A couple of free throws here and there. I can't touch him on. I say I can't touch him on DraftKings, but I might have a little bit of on FanDuel and hope for a decently high floor. And then Shabazz Napier maybe let some of you guys down. Again, if I can put him about 30 minutes, he played 27 minutes against Phoenix. I do think his range of outcomes are going to be a lot more volatile, but he's going to chuck some threes. He's going to give you a chip in a chair and a puncher's chance. You would love to see his assist rate go up a little bit. We've seen games where he has 6 and 7 assists. I think, without Kyrie, without Spencer Dinwiddie, they need somebody to facilitate. I think Karis LeVert's going to be one of those guys. And like I said, the Magic are a much better team. Or excuse me, not the Magic. Actually, why didn't he have more assists there? Troy Brown Jr. was also a pretty trendy play in that last slate. Price has gone up a little bit. At 5K on FanDuel, I'm really looking for 30 fantasy points. I don't think it's out of the question here, but it's not something I'm running to. 4,500 on DraftKings. Maybe slides into a couple more lineups. Other than Ish Smith, I'm probably not diving too far into this bench here. And then on the net side, I did play some Tyler Johnson last slate. And at 3,200 on DraftKings, again, I probably can go back to the well and have him in some of my mass entry scripting. He got 19 minutes against Orlando. If we go back to that popcorn machine, I am curious to see what his chart looked like. What am I doing? I had the wrong game open. Brooklyn Nets. Was he part of that cleanup crew in the fourth? Probably not, right? No, he wasn't. So, if he has 18 minutes here, there's a chance that he might get a piece of that fourth quarter. I mean, you look at these guys like Luwawu, Dante Hall, Justin Anderson, Zanin Musa, Jeremiah Martin. Those guys ain't touching the court if that game isn't over. So I do think there's some more minutes to be had there for Tyler Johnson. So 3,200 for Tyler Johnson against the Wizards. Probably too cheap. If we can put that to about 23, 24 minutes, he was a point per minute in that game against Orlando. I think this matchup, this pace is going to be up. There's a good chance that 25 DKP is in his wheelhouse, and that could be, him and Ishmael. Those could be pieces to go get you an extra shot at Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, Luka Doncic, guys like that. So I do keep those guys in mind here. What up, Pav? Prince Tar Prince, yeah. What up, Kingston Bailey? Good morning, you guys. I didn't expect a crowd, like a live crowd here, but appreciate you guys stopping by. Heck, if you guys got plays and picks, stuff like that, throw it in the chat. Moving on to the next game, Boston Celtics hosting the Portland Trail Blazers. This actually had a total a little bit higher than I thought I was going to type when I was transferring the information to my sheet. We got 230.5 total, 4.5 point spread in favor of the Boston Celtics. Project starting five for the Blazers: Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, Carmelo Anthony, Zach Collins, Jusuf Nurkic, taking on Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, and Daniel Tice. 6-game slate. Normally, it doesn't matter what size of slate. If the Celtics are going to have all of their starters and be healthy, I'm probably not an investor in the Celtics. Kemba Walker still dealing with a minutes restriction, so that's just enough to eat into usage from other guys and be annoying where you can't play his backup. So my personal take here is I'm staying away from the Celtics. If it burns me, it burns me. Jason Tatum's coming off potentially the worst game of his career, where he shot 2 for 18 and got you 23 fantasy points against Milwaukee. Now Milwaukee's lengthy, and they're set up to guard guys like Jason Tatum, right? Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those guys are lengthy, and that could be a tough matchup here. Portland should be a better spot if Tatum matches up with guys like Zach Collins and Carmelo Anthony. You should see better results, but nonetheless, the 8,200, I'd only be a buyer on Tatum if there was like no Kemba. That was the catalyst in his big fantasy explosion before the All-Star break. The bulk of my interest in this game, though minimal, would be on the Blazers side. Jusuf Nurkic came back and put up some big fantasy numbers. 50.75 DKP, 33 minutes, did a little bit of everything. 6 blocks against Memphis. Did foul out. The game went to extra innings. 9 rebounds that game. So 50 with no bonus or anything like that. That's massive. Something fun about Nurkic here is you could play him in the power forward spot. So technically you could put him in 4 spots on your roster: power forward, center forward, util. So if that helps you out, maybe it gives you a higher floor. Evidently a high ceiling guy. Again, a lot of his points came from blocks. Am I expecting that many blocks here against the Celtics? Probably not. But at 7,700, obviously there is meat on the bone there. I do think Memphis is a much faster pace, sloppier defense, better opportunity for the whole Blazers team to hit, and they did. Lillard, McCollum, Nurkic, they all, even I think Melo even hit 30. They all delivered. I think the Celtics, generally speaking, with Brad Stevens, are a tougher matchup, so I will be much less enthusiastic about picking on them. Damian Lillard just kind of in no man's land for me at 9,500. You're looking all the way around him. We got Devin Booker. De'Aaron Fox was a massive play the other night. Couple of punts on the Spurs. We'll talk about DeMar DeRozan as a mid-tier option. I just think Damian Lillard falls through the cracks, 48.25 in 45 minutes. I mean, the usage can only be spread a little bit more. I'll get the official usage rates from that team, though. So give me just a second. Portland usage. There's a lot of usage. Lillard had a 28% usage, Nurkic 24.4%, and C.J. McCollum 22.6%. So add in the fact that they all played heavy minutes, 40-plus minutes. They were able to get there. So if you think those minutes in a tight game and a scoreboard could look the same against the Celtics, go for it. I think I'm staying away for the most part. Really do. I don't even have any bench picks here for me. Wouldn't hate picking on the Blazers with like a guard, but these guards aren't getting it done for me. So I'm gonna move on to the next game, and that might just be one of those games I disregard. And when that happens throughout the daytime, I'm gonna be moving backwards and hoping the next couple games bring me back forward. Especially this game, Spurs at the Grizzlies. We got a 234.5 total, 4-point spread in favor of the Memphis Grizzlies. Project starting five for the Spurs: Dejounte Murray, Derek White, Lonnie Walker IV, DeMar DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl, taking on Ja Morant, Dylan Brooks, Kyle The Andersons got tickets to the game. How'd they get tickets? Jaron Jackson Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, higher total than the preceding Boston Celtics game, and it should be a more pace up, two sloppier defenses. If we go to that team stats tab in the RunDFS.com VIP spreadsheet, I don't know how I just got the shooting guard DVP, but lit. We got points per game allowed. The Memphis Grizzlies allow the fourth most points per game, and the San Antonio Spurs are fifth, sixth, seventh most points per game there. So lots of points to be had. If we go to that pace chart, you'll find that the Memphis Grizzlies, have a top 7 pace. So pace up spot for the Spurs and the Grizzlies. You know how the Grizzlies play. I think we look at DeMar DeRozan a little bit closer here. Officially, he's starting at the power forward spot. Kind of laughed at him there. Didn't take a whole lot of chances with him in that last game. During that game, the usage rates were pretty spread out throughout the whole Spurs team. But the fantasy game for DeMar DeRozan was absolutely something that you'd be an investor in. 38 minutes against Sacramento, 27 real points, 10 assists, and a couple peripherals to boot. Still not chucking threes, but you're never really going to get that from him. Mid-40s is a reasonable range of outcome for him. And then on the usage charts, man, we had a 27% usage rate for Derek White. And I was dabbling with Dejounte Murray, but Derek White at 6,200, 47 fantasy points that game, 8 boards, 5 assists, and chucked 15 shots, 9 of them from downtown. That makes sense, right? DeMar DeRozan's not chucking threes. And I guess you could look at Lonnie Walker. So Derek White just kind of like literally fell through the cracks in plain sight. I was playing Dejounte Murray. I was playing Jakob Poeltl. Couple dabs of DeRozan, and Lonnie Walker ended up being kind of a chalk value play, and there was Derek White just chilling. So Derek White might be somebody to look at today. Minutes-wise for the Spurs in that game, DeRozan led the team in minutes at 38, and Derek White was second in minutes at 34. So that's a good sign. A third in minutes for the Spurs, though. How about Jakob Poeltl? Now, I'm a big proponent of Jared Allen today. And Jared Allen is center only, so you can only play him as center util. Jakob Poeltl only center only, but he got 32 minutes there against Sacramento. He was 4,700. 27 DKP isn't the worst. He goes down $700 in price against Memphis, and we just talked about how the pace up spot should create plenty of opportunities. So I do think Jakob Poeltl is going to get my player pool. He's going to be one of my sought after value plays. Do hate having to burn 2 center spots there. I would love if he was forward eligible, but I'm a buyer on Poeltl here. I think he does enough of everything, and it is a block spot. We just saw Nurkic was able to load up on blocks against Memphis. I think Poeltl can do the same. He's averaging just under a point per minute and 3 appearances against the Grizzlies. So, yeah, give me some Poeltl in my back pocket. And then I was privy to Dejounte Murray that last game, thinking Pop was on this youth movement kick. He had 5 fouls in 21 minutes. Still had a point per minute. Stays out of foul trouble here. Do we push 28, 30 minutes? Kind of what we saw in his scrimmages. I think if that's the case, 6K is definitely a spot where we can net 6X. And maybe if we project the foul trouble to go away here and Dejounte Murray to pick up some slack, maybe Derek White takes a step backward, but I still think we can consider both of them. And do we go back after Lonnie Walker, after he was one of the more popular plays on the slate? His price only went up $300, 32 minutes against Sacramento, 25 DKP. You'd take that. You'd probably take that at 3,500 too if it was a way to go get your James Hardens, your Giannis Antetokounmpos, Lucas, guys like that. So plenty of plays to put in the pocket here, put in your pocket here from the San Antonio Spurs. Do I want anybody off of the Spurs bench? Probably not. I also think, past these starters, the minutes got a little bit rough. Keldon Johnson's maybe a name to put in your back pocket. Should we get Bryn Forbes and Patty Mills out again? And I think I saw that Marco Bellinelli was already ruled out. He's doubtful for Sunday's matchup. So there's a lot of backup guard minutes to go around. And again, Keldon Johnson, probably a beneficiary of the foul trouble from Dejounte Murray. But somebody to keep in your back pocket because he did get some run in the spring training scrimmages. So I don't know if you're trying to chase 100K to first with a massive, massive field. Maybe you got lucky there. But I love shots at really all these Spurs starters. On the Grizzlies side, Ja Morant got a price increase, something to be at least encouraged about with Ja Morant. It doesn't look like he's on that soft 30-minute cap anymore. If you go back into the regular season, we saw 35, 31, 32. We saw high 30-minute or 30-plus minutes in a succession of games, 41 minutes in that overtime game with Portland. Guy's going to be a point per minute plus more often than he's not. And a San Antonio matchup, certainly one that we can get behind. The 7+ K price tag puts him in a little awkward spot, but I do think if you're trying to make it more balanced lineups today, Morant is a guy to consider, especially if the casual player is still going to try and go studs and scrubs to get those Hardens. I'll tell you right now, I think the eyes are on the Milwaukee-Houston game, and people are going to try and jam in Giannis and Harden, especially after what Harden just did. Remember, it took overtime, especially after what Harden just did. So you might be able to get different by just being balanced today. Do I have any different? Maybe Brandon Clark again. I liked him against Portland. 4,200 on DraftKings, 4,800 on FanDuel. FanDuel, I'm looking for 30 DKP. I think that is a range of outcome, but I hate paying up for what is probably value. But 34 minutes against Portland, 38 DKP. I think he might have got some run there in that overtime. Let me double check that. I don't want to lie here. We want the facts. Portland. Brandon Clark. Yeah, he played the whole overtime game, so 5 minutes of that came in OT. But looks like he still had a shot at high 20s here. He got some run in the first quarter, closed out the first half. Big shot in the third quarter. Is that due to foul trouble, maybe? Or I guess Portland was just playing super big with Nurkic and Whiteside and Zach Collins. So I guess with DeMar DeRozan being the power forward, maybe they don't have to respond as big, right? But I mean, I'm encouraged, and we know Jaren Jackson Jr. or Jonas Valanciunas have the propensity to get in foul trouble. So I still think in large field tournaments on DraftKings, I probably have some exposure to a guy like Brandon Clark. And yeah, we're coming up with some plays here, right? Let's move on to the next game. Orlando Magic hosting the Sacramento Kings. I say hosting in jest. The project starting five for the Kings: De'Aaron Fox, Bogdanovich, Harrison Barnes, Nemanja Bjelica, Rashawn Holmes taking on DJ Augustine, Evan Fournier, James Ennis III, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Vucevic. Mentioned a 228 total with a 2.5 point spread in favor of the home team, Orlando Magic. Sacramento looks like they're going to be without Alex Len again, and of course that lineup already took a hit from the regular season lineup that we know. Guys like Marvin Bagley out. I think we can still consider Rashawn Holmes. I do think his price in this matchup are something that I'm not going to be overly confident and happy with. And I also think that this matchup is a little bit tougher than their preceding matchup on the return, where we saw a lot of Sacramento Kings offer some upside. We saw De'Aaron Fox have that massive, massive game. So I'm going to be a little bit lower on the Kings here, and I will have interest still in the Orlando Magic. Somebody to keep an eye on here is Evan Fournier. So the Orlando Magic have Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac on minutes restriction, and in that last game they were coming off the bench. Also in that last game, I believe Terrence Ross was out. Let me double check that. Terrence Ross, no, he played that game. I feel like there was another guard out, but I don't want to lie. Let me look at that full Orlando guard list here. Was it MCW? Not that he matters, but he played 20 minutes. No, I guess not. I guess I'm just tripping. But Markelle Fultz on a minute restriction. Evan Fournier had a great game fantasy-wise. 35 DKP, 25 minutes. Remember, that was a blowout. He's likely going to get 30-plus minutes if it stays a little bit more competitive. And no matter what, you're probably going to expect double-digit shot attempts. And a lot of them are going to be from three. So it works out really well on DraftKings if he's hitting at a good clip. The Kings on the season are not the worst at guarding the three in terms of percentage allowed. A lot more of mid-range and stuff like that. But I do think Fournier is in play for me. And he did get 5 assists that game. He'll fall into a steal. He gets a surprising amount of blocks as of late, but a couple steals and some points. He's going to be more so point dependent than you want him to be, but I do think he's in my player pool as maybe a tier 3 exposure type of guy. And how about Nikola Vucevic? 8,100 on FanDuel, 8,700 on DraftKings. I think we ask ourselves, does this game stay close? Is it a competitive game? If it is, Vucevic can be a point per minute or even greater, as we've seen in his last couple games. Matter of fact, pretty much as far as the eye can see outside of that San Antonio game, he has given us 40-plus fantasy points and has excelled a point per minute threshold. And if that 27 minutes against Brooklyn turns into 32, 33 in a competitive game, we probably have ourselves another 40-plus, maybe even a 50-point performance. Against Sacramento, I'm a buyer. I think he can have himself a great game. I got him at 34 projected minutes. The soft projection spit back 44 DKP. I think he falls you look at some of these mid-tier names today. Like I said, at the top of this slate, you're going to see a lot of casual interest in Harden, Giannis, Luka, Russell, Lillard, Porzingis. I mean, all that's like for a good reason. But Vucevic at 8.7 gives you 50 just as much as the next guy. And I do think there's some middling guys in the 8K range. They're just going to get lost in the sauce because of the studs and scrubs chalk build. Ayton's still in that area. Booker's in that area. So I think you can make some really fun AK lineups. And Vucevic would certainly be one of the names I'd talk about, especially since there's going to be a lot of heat on Jared Allen at 5,600. So maybe you double down with Vooch and Allen. I definitely am a proponent in using utils for centers for scripting, because centers often give you the highest floor if you project accordingly, thinking about the rebounds and stuff like that. So Vucevic definitely in my pool. I'm going to trust Vegas with this 2.5 point spread and expect it to stay close. Spread was maybe a little tighter than I thought it was, or thought it would be. But I guess in retrospect, the Nets really aren't a full NBA team. So, give me a lot of Vooch, a dab of Fournier. Aaron Gordon's more interesting on FanDuel than DraftKings to me. I think at 6,200, there is a range of outcomes where he gets me mid-30s. The Sacramento Kings play a much slower pace. Gordon's a guy I like in some pace-up spots, get some of those fast break opportunities, those breakaway dunks and stuff like that. They only allow 10.5 fast break points per game. That's pretty elite. If we go to that pace chart, you'll find Sacramento Kings are the slowest pace team in the league, and the Orlando Magic are bottom 4 in pace. So, kind of a high total for two of the slowest paced teams in basketball, I think. So I don't hate considering the under here while we're at it. Let's look at the live chat here. Orlando got that home court advantage. I mean, I guess technically they do, sure. Let's move on to the next game. Rockets hosting the Milwaukee Bucks. Project starting 5 for the Bucks. Dante DiVincenzo, Wesley Matthews, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Brook Lopez taking on Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Daniel House, Robert Covington, P.J. Tucker. A 242 total with a 4-point spread in favor of Milwaukee. So, this is the game. Obviously, if you try and jam in the 3 studs from this game, it's probably not going to turn out too well if you start on DraftKings with Giannis and Harden. And this is strictly DraftKings. On FanDuel, I'm pretty sure this is going to work without a problem. But if you start with Harden and Giannis on DraftKings, you're only going to get 46 per. And believe you me, there's going to be a conglomerate of players today trying to fit them both in. And we talked about a couple of the guys that'll, at least that I am privy to, that allow you to do it. A guy like Ish Smith, a guy like maybe Tyler Johnson in the shooting guard spot. spot. That gives you 5K for like Jared Allen. And then you're kind of scrapping there, 5,100 for a couple positions. There's probably still another 3 to 4K cheapie floating around. So I don't think it's impossible, but just know this is probably the trendy approach. So it's not a bad idea to consider some alternative lineup construction methods in mass field tournaments. And then also, it definitely seems impossible to have Westbrook, Harden, and Giannis. So is this potentially a game to consider, jamming in some Westbrook and being a little under on Harden? And then Giannis Antetokounmpo, 11K. How much do we love or hate him? So here's what I'll say with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Anytime this guy's going to get 30-plus minutes, I'm a buyer. More often than not, the reason Giannis Antetokounmpo isn't hitting value is because they have blown teams out and the game's over. But Giannis Antetokounmpo, man, I used to type that so fast. Here we go. Antetokounmpo, DKP by game log. Last 10 games with, let's put 33 minutes, right? Last 10 games with 33 minutes. There's not a whole lot of them. But going back to February, 58, 77, 61. Let's maybe put 20. No less than 57 fantasy points in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games with 33 minutes. That's huge. That's a giant floor. The ceiling is there too at 78, 72. Let's put DKP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, DKP by game log versus Rockets. Last 5 games. 70, 46, 62. Now, are these low-scoring games foul trouble games? Yes. 6 fouls against... Oh, he has 71 points in 28 minutes. Excuse me. No, not foul trouble games. And then let's run that back. James Harden, DKP by game log versus Bucks last 10 games. 51, 50, 71, 50, 48, 59. Now, this is going back into last season. There's no games from this season. No, I guess this October 24th game would be this season. Man, if you're paying $11K for Harden, what do you want? I don't know. I think we have to trust the totals here. I'm a little bit conflicted. I think I'm going to be extremely interested in what projected ownership will have for these guys. I think after that last game, just game-long chasers alone, we'll see 85 fantasy points and be like, yeah, got to have some of that. Almost triple-doubled. That game did go to overtime. At 11-1, I probably want 70. Yeah, I probably want 70 just to see myself at the top of a tournament. So, Anyway, Harden and Giannis are definitely playable guys. I think the supplementary picks here are kind of going to make and break your lineups and my lineups in deep field tournaments. So the first guy I kind of want to look at is Chris Middleton. I rarely play Middleton near 7K with Giannis Antetokounmpo in. But in this matchup, I might be a little bit more interested. Let's just see his history. Game log versus Rockets. Last 10 games. 30. Jesus, it's not great. What's the fouls looking like? Not a lot. 5. There's only probably 2 games here I'd really like today from Chris Middleton. So I'm a little sour on that. Dante DiVincenzo with Bledsoe still out. Could be an interesting play, especially if Connaughton's still out. I think he is. I think he's a strong shot at near 30 minutes. Wesley Matthews, if you want a real chip in a chair as a guy that maybe gets hot from 3 in a shootout. Earlier this season, he dropped 27 DKP against the Rockets, just 2 for 8 from downtown. Definitely no warm and fuzzies on that click, but if you're trying to win that 100K to first or 200K to first, whether they got out there today, he might be a name that makes sense, right? A near 30-minute guy, a long-range shooter, and a fast-paced shootout matchup against a team that allows you to chuck threes, a 38.5 points per game allowed from downtown, and it's a fast-paced matchup. Milwaukee Bucks are one of the league leaders, are the league leader in pace. Rockets are the third fastest in pace, and the Rockets give up 16.5 fast break points per game, and that's got to be amongst the most in basketball. If we go to, do I even have that over here? That's got to be amongst the most in basketball if we look at the league here. So fast break buckets here for the Bucks. Maybe Wesley and Dante kind of surprise us down the line and extra assists for guys like Giannis. If we go back to that DVP chart and just kind of look at Memphis and Houston, Houston has been giving up the second most fantasy points per game to the power forward position on this slate, and they've just been really bad overall against forwards. So, I mean, everyone's in play here, but you can't really paint a bad picture for Giannis. The only thing I'd be curious with here is just to see how much 11K guys get owned. And if I want to get that cute or that different in fading expensive chuck. Because like I said, there are several 7 to 8 to 9K guys on this slate that are in fine position to go out there and outproduce at their salary points. I don't think there would be a lot of sharps surprised if a guy like Karis LeVert dropped 50 to 60 in his matchup today against the Wizards, right? I don't think there would be a lot of people surprised if Jared Allen did it. Again, I think Allen's going to be probably one of the highest owned players on the slate, but there's a lot of guys that can overperform at their salary today that just won't get clicked on. We talked about Vucevic, DeRozan. So I am curious to see how I can be contrarian but still be smart, because it definitely just seems like hashtag DFS for these 240 plus total games to kind of disappoint from a fantasy standpoint. But we'll see. This could have been a finals preview with one of the best teams in the West versus one of the best teams in the East. I don't think I can get behind AK Middleton. And then off the bench here, I think this Bucks rotation is going to be pretty saturated. Just out of curiosity, looking at their rotation from that Boston game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6-man rotation off the bench, or 5-man rotation. We're not going to count DJ Wilson. So 10-man rotation. And it looks like George Hill led the bench in minutes. Is George Hill cheap enough? 3,900 on DraftKings. Plus matchup against the Rockets. Definitely could paint a picture for Wesley or Dante, to get in foul trouble against the Rockets. Could George Hill surprise some people here? Maybe. Wouldn't be anything to get too excited about. Yeah. Let's see what you guys got on this one, chat. So we need to identify the players around the studs and possibly play them for sure. Middleton, Rocco could be Rocco. We didn't even take a minute to look at Rocco, but Rocco's going to be a deep minute guy that probably at 5,900 on FanDuel is somebody I'm going to just have a lot of as just if you're going to have 34, 35, 36 minutes in a 240 total with this pace and you're a peripheral getter like Rocco, I think I'm just going to get it, right? It's not like a matchup that I'm projecting to be extremely plus, but I think he falls into enough work to where I can buy into it. 44 DKP, 42 minutes against Dallas, but the rebounds are there, the blocks are there, the steals are there. If he has to guard Giannis or Middleton, that's a little bit tougher, and of course, foul propensity's there. Maybe we can, just out of curiosity, see if he's had any level of success. DKP by game log versus Giannis. Antetokounmpo let's go last 10 games. 33-25. Nothing like stands out. Minute-wise, though, 33 with Minnesota, just 26 with Minnesota when he was on that completely full team, they probably got smoked that game. And then a lot of 26 or less minute games with point per minute results. So in this situation where we can add 10 minutes to those old results, I definitely think Covington's going to make my like a tier 2, right? Not a guy I'm going to hang my hat on, but just kind of a guy that I don't anticipate killing me if if he only hit like 28 fantasy points, right? And then PJ Tucker's probably a no for me, but he is a cheapie with a lot of minutes in this type of matchup, right? And then Brook Lopez, I've got him for 28 projected minutes, spitting back just about a point per minute. I don't think you're crazy to play anyone from this game that isn't Harden and Giannis. I think you guys can try and get lucky. If it plays like Vegas says it plays, it should be more than Giannis and Harden that do things. Westbrook, an obvious secondary look, but he's essentially 10K, so he's going to need that 50-60 himself. What else we got here? What up, Chris? Do you think the Lopez guys are fades with the small ball lineup? No, because Brook Lopez can chuck threes, right? Maybe Robin's not a guy I'm banking on to chuck threes. We've seen it from him this year, but Lopez 5. So, I mean, he's on a team that plays the fastest in the league anyway, so he's used to being on the court for fast-paced small ball matchups. And like I said, he could stretch the court and chuck threes just fine. 26 minutes against Houston last time, 28 DKP. I wish I could put him on in more minutes, George Hill, he runs the point pretty well. Yeah. And like I said, without Connaughton and Bledsoe, if one of the starting guards, Dante DiVincenzo or Wesley Matthews, were to get in foul trouble against James Harden, very possible, you could see a path for him to do well, right? Never play Matthews. He's terrible fantasy-wise. I tell you what, man, punt guards against the Rockets, you might be surprised. There's one game in his last, maybe I'll say 3 games in his last 10 against the Rockets that I would be not excited with today. And obviously it's not fair to go back to his old Dallas days, but the point kind of still stands. Guards against the Rockets can just kind of surprise you. Rockets on this slate are allowing the most fantasy points per game to opposing shooting guards. So I'm not saying play Wesley Matthews, but I am saying maybe be a little bit more open-minded. That 3,700 on FanDuel or 3,400 and a 242 total could pan out better than you think with no Connaughton or Bledsoe. Just throwing that out there. Give me Westbrook and Harden together. Yeah, I can live with that. I think if you put any 2 studs here, Westbrook, Harden, or Middleton or Giannis, that combo, 2 of that 3, you're probably gonna want 120 points from them combined. And that would be my plan if I did that. Let's get to the last game on the slate. Before I do that, take a pause for the cause. Let you guys know that we'll be grinding all sports today in the RunDFS.com VIP Discord. We will be covering baseball. I'm not in love with today's baseball slate. 6-game slate with very, very few pitching options. Almost no pitching options. But an hour after baseball locks, basketball locks will be in the voice chat talking both sports up until both locks. So if you guys want to get in that, go for it. I will be dressing up the spreadsheet with my favorite plays for both sports, right? And then my favorite plays on both sites for FanDuel and DraftKings. Was a big day for us yesterday on both sites. I was top 10 in all my single entries on FanDuel yesterday. I'm hoping to keep that momentum alive going into today. So if you guys want to be part of that community, be in those voice chats or just listening to the voice chats, get the spreadsheets. Go to RunDFS.com, make yourself an account, click VIP passes, and get signed up. We'd love to have you. If you had any questions about that, go to twitter.com/GundackerSports. DMs are open. Send me a DM, and I'll work something out with you. Main event tonight, Phoenix Suns hosting the Dallas Mavericks. A 236.5 total, 5.5 points spread in favor of the Dallas Mavericks. Project starting 5 for the Mavs: Luka Doncic, Seth Curry, Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, Kristaps Porzingis, taking on Ricky Rubio, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, and DeAndre Ayton. Mavericks and the Rockets went blow for blow there. In that last game, it kind of withered away from the Mavericks late. A lot of Mavs fans still a little bit salty about how that game turned out. But this is another spot where I'm curious to see how ownership shakes out. Now, you can easily make the case that Luka, Giannis, and Harden all have a similar range of outcomes considering their matchups today. And I would probably put that window between 55 and 70. And I don't think that's crazy, right? Is 55 too high for Luka? I don't think it is. Maybe it's right at the door. In 2 games against the Phoenix Suns this season, he's averaging 53. So maybe it is just a couple points too high. But he's a guy that certainly could at least challenge the floor. I think the Mavericks are a better team than the Suns, so I would say that the Bucks and Rockets win the seesaw battle for sailing, which would probably win the seesaw battle for casual and field ownership, which I guess makes Luka a little bit more interesting for leverage. And depending on what his projected ownership would be, we could dabble with his leverage by just being double the field if we had to be, right? Another guy to consider here, Kristaps Porzingis. He's 9K on DraftKings, 9,600 on FanDuel. I mean, he's getting a little bit uncomfortable. Was a great counterpart to Luka fantasy-wise against Houston. 39 minutes in a game that produced 300 real points, 39 real points, 70 fantasy points. Probably a little bit on the outlier ceiling side in a normal game. I don't expect the Suns to kind of challenge at that level, but I am a proponent of Porzingis and Luka been playing much, much better and coexisting much more consistently lately, right? There was a stretch where we only played Porzingis if Luka was out, but I think lately we've seen potential for both of them to coincide, and we saw it there in that Houston game. I will say 9K for Porzingis. I'm probably leaning out. With that said, Porzingis in that Dallas front court, pretty decent defensively. They're about league average at points fantasy points per allowed to both the power forward and center position. And then what are we looking at points in the paint allowed? The Dallas Mavericks are a little below league average. So, do we love DeAndre Ayton at 8,500 on DraftKings, 8,100? Oh, man, Ayton's been pretty solid for me. I loved him in that last slate. He is also forward eligible, much like Yusuf Nurkic. So there is that. Washington, a much more generous, much more obvious matchup. In a game against the Mavericks earlier this season, he dropped 49. I'd probably have more than 0. Chuck some threes against the Wizards, too. Could a double-double be his way? 45. We'd probably take 45. So I think he's in the pool, but I don't know that he blows our mind at 85 on an average range of outcome here. Devin Booker, 81 to 8,600 on FanDuel and DraftKings. He's another great example of a guy that becomes, I would say, 15% or less, considering how it feels like a lot of people will go studs and scrubs, go jamming Harden, Luka, Giannis. Devin Booker certainly has 50-plus point fantasy point potential. He dropped 40 against Washington, but he took 20-plus shot attempts. If he fills in a couple more peripherals, he's not far from mid-40s to potentially 50. In 2 games against Dallas, he's averaging 47.4 DKP, so certainly a little bit of a positive track record. Again, some game theory to be had there. And then with no Kelly Oubre in the mix, Mikal Bridges should soak up a lot of minutes. And kind of on that Robert Covington note, and to a much lesser extent, Wesley Matthews and PJ Tucker. Mikal Bridges, eventually, if you play 35 to 37 minutes a game, he's going to fall into enough peripherals to be a good stocking stuffer. So maybe he's in my back pocket. If we go look at the small forward DVP tab, Dallas has given up the third most fantasy points per game to opposing small forwards, and it's almost like a funnel defense, kind of. So I could certainly see a case for playing some Bridges here, and just hoping he falls into enough work at 37 minutes, maybe 35 minutes in this matchup that he gets there, right? Off the bench for the Mavericks, Trey Burke, 3,800 on DraftKings. He was a pleasant surprise for a lot of Mavs fans in that last outing against Houston. Surely Houston will play smaller than the Suns will, but he saw 30 minutes of work, shot 16 field goal attempts, 10 of them from downtown. Unsustainable 80% success rate, but at 30 plus real points, 47 and a quarter DKP, is that not a puncher's chance at 3,800 to go chase that and maybe get 25 to 30 DKP? I don't mind taking a couple of dabs at that. To curtain call maybe, and maybe Carlisle, gives him those minutes here, and I'd take it. Anyone else from the Sun side that I would take a shot on? I guess keep an eye on Aaron Baines. If Aaron Baines was in, maybe that threatens a couple minutes from DeAndre Ayton. But we also might just see them play some Twin Tower lineup, so I'm not too concerned on that. Tim Hardaway, nothing there. That's getting me to warm and fuzzies, right? See what you guys got in the live chat. Brendan says Fox, De'Aaron Fox. I'm less on Fox than most of the AK guys, but I definitely understand it. Is Senators versus Dallas a thing? It's middling results. I love this game if it stays close. Suns and the Mavericks, yeah. Any Bridges love? I think the Bridges love for me is founded on his minutes floor, and then hoping that he's able to produce or at least fall into enough peripherals to be a solid stocking stuffer. You're always streaming at the perfect time. Hey, man, appreciate that. Like I said, I got up and I couldn't go back to sleep. I initially planned to maybe get up at 7 or 8 and do some live streams, and I figured, you know what, we'll just get out the way. Not a lot of soak time today. That's a business term. And my videos don't get a lot of clicks anyway, but not a lot of soak time between now or for the early locks on both sites now. Usually with NBA, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., same with baseball. Not today, Junior. Anytime you talk about Dallas, you got to get Boban in there. I mean, I could mention him, but he might get more minutes here than he did last game. I didn't like him at all against Houston because that was not the game script for him. I think he got like 5 minutes. He had 5 minutes against Houston. I don't really see a reason to get that creative today, but hey, man, you do you, boo-boo. Boban and Bolvo, yeah. Anyway, I guess that's it. Like I said, this would be maybe a core for me. Guys like Jared Allen that I'm pretty confident will outproduce his salary. Love me some Ish Smith. Anyone else that we mentioned that is probably just a little bit on the too cheap side? Let me go look at my soft serve projections. Tyler Johnson's at the top. I can get behind that again. So if I use these three value plays, Tyler Johnson, Jared Allen, Ish Smith, that gives me 74.80 per, man. I can get really nice balanced lineups with that. I can still go up there and go get those heavy 2 stud lineups, or even just 1 stud and a couple of middling guys. But I love this core for value. I definitely think we're putting this together. It's just under 13K or 14K. I definitely think I can 40, 25. I'm probably gonna get 80 to 90 fantasy points projected between these three. And if we're looking for 350 points, that'll get me a third of the way, and we fill in a couple of 50s and 60s. So I like these guys on FanDuel. If we take a minute to look at that, Ish Smith isn't quite the value on FanDuel. Tyler Johnson is 4,200. I don't mind looking at that. Rashawn Holmes is really cheap on, or not Rashawn Holmes, excuse me. Jared Allen is still cheap on FanDuel at 5,600, but you do have to surrender that center spot. I don't think that's the craziest approach today, because I do think on FanDuel you're going to be much more obligated to have those Giannis and Harden lineups, because FanDuel's lineup construction is usually that. It usually pushes you into studs and scrubs. So just putting, and Luke is still a shooting guard on FanDuel, which is interesting. Yeah, 52. So I do think we're going to have much more double stud and maybe even triple stud lineups on FanDuel. And I can't really push back against that as much. But I'll do a little bit more diving on who the right value plays for me are on FanDuel. And, of course, I'll list them in my personal player pool in the VIP spreadsheet, right? That'll be it, man. That'll do it, man. If you guys help me out, hit that thumbs up on this video. I'll probably tweet it out in a sec if you want to help me out with some retweets on Twitter, twitter.com/GunDeckerSports. I'm thinking about dropping a baseball stream real quick, but pitching is so bad. It is so bad. So I don't feel like I would offer a whole lot of guidance, but I'm thinking about dropping a baseball stream real quick. So I don't know. Anybody just chat playing baseball today? Maybe. But for this video, that'll do it. I hope you guys crush it today. Like I said, I am planning on mixing up the content a little bit going forward. I don't know if I want to just do pick videos or something like that, but we'll probably introduce webcam shows just to kind of add a little extra personality to the videos. It seems to be a successful strategy for content creators. So maybe we'll put my ugly mug on a couple of these videos and see if that helps reshake the channel into the YouTube algorithms, right? Sean, you want a baseball stream? I just might do it, bro. I just might do it. But anyway, I hope you guys crush it today. I'll be back with some type of content for tomorrow. What is tomorrow's NBA slate looking like? Just out of curiosity, NBA scores. There's also NASCAR today, man. What a day to be a sports fan, right? Love NBA scores. Tomorrow, 12:30 lock. Yikes. Raptors, Heat, Pacers, Wizards, Nuggets, Thunder, Grizzlies, Pelicans. That one's going to be nuts. Spurs at the Sixers. So Spurs are on a back-to-back. Interesting. And Lakers at the Jazz. Weird slate there. I'll see you guys next time, though. I love each and every one of you. Help me out with that thumbs up. Good luck. God bless.